It Lurks Below, 1973. Alternate Timeline, Stephen King novella. Audiobook plus comic, chapters 101 through 120. In the fall of 1973, in a timeline not our own, a small press known as Arkham Candle quietly published a 150-page slim paperback novella titled It Lurks Below. It was written by the Stephen King of that timeline under a pseudonym. His authorship was finally revealed in a 1986 reprint edition in that world. It told of a coastal Maine town called Hobbs Hollow, a ruined cannery, and a thing that waited in the deep, taking on the shape of whatever you feared most. Fog, brine, the smell of circus peanuts, and a creepy smile in the dark. What you're about to read is a real, recovered echo artifact from a real, alternate timeline. An early, alternate, raw incarnation of what we would come to know as Stephen King's It in our world. Set against the drowning town of Hobbs Hollow, Maine, these pages offer a chilling glimpse into a darker, stranger path that our history never followed. This final video will present chapters 101 through 120 of the alternate timeline novella. With this video, the full 150-page novella is complete in audiobook, visual comic book form. I would highly suggest starting from the first video in the playlist if you got to this one first. Let's dive in. Facility AI note. There exist 3 primary timeline strands containing the novella variant known as Stephen King's It Lurks Below. One version was published in late 1972 in a parallel timeline. While it tells the same core story set in Hobbs Hollow, the creature in that version never speaks, and the novella is 3 chapters shorter overall. This variant is essentially the original 2-week rough draft written in December 1971, where King never returned to the cabin to refine it further before publishing, feeling in that timeline that the work was complete. A more expansive variant was published in October 1973 in a closely neighboring timeline. In this version, the creature does speak at key points, and the text includes 3 additional chapters. This variant was considered the more complete and critically acclaimed release between the 3 timeline versions. A third variant, published in November 1973 in another neighboring timeline, was the first variant we managed to pull through the Veil of Worlds. It is roughly 93% the same as the October 1973 variant, but is missing a few key clarifying lines and details throughout the story that were present in the October 1973 variant. The version presented here is the October 1973 Timeline edition, fully restored from the Echo Vault and transcribed via Arkham Candle imprint protocols. Alternate Timeline novella It Lurks Below. Pages 129 through 132, transcription. Chapter 101. The Basement Window. No one remembered there being a window in the basement of Hobbs Hollow Elementary. But one morning in February, it was just there. A narrow rectangular slit in the stone. Iron bars. Frosted glass. It didn't look in. It looked out. Children peered through it during recess. They said it showed a different version of the playground. Broken swings, no sky, and shadows that moved too slowly. A boy named Aaron looked too long. That night he began drawing spirals. Not on paper, on walls, sheets, skin. Eventually the window disappeared, but the drawings never stopped. Chapter 102, the 25th book. There are 24 books in the school's haunted stories shelf, or so the librarian insists, but some say there was a 25th. It had no title, just black leather and red stitching. It always appeared last, when no one was around. If opened, the pages were blank at first, but by the 3rd page, they began to whisper. One student, Caleb Norris, swore the book told him his own future, and that it ended in flame. He stopped speaking after that. Eventually, the shelf was removed entirely. No one talks about what was found beneath it. Chapter 103. The Wrong Birthday. Cynthia LaRue got a card in the mail. Happy 10th birthday, it said, but she was 12. It was signed by a name no one recognized, Uncle Gray. Inside was a photo, a family reunion, but with faces slightly wrong. Uncanny smiles, names handwritten on the back, none of them hers. The date on the postmark. October 13th, 1883. That night, Cynthia disappeared from her room. In her place, a dress, wool, Victorian, still warm. The handwriting on the mirror read, "You'll be 10 forever now." Facility AI note. The creepy reference to an Uncle Gray in this chapter certainly draws parallels to our timeline's Bob Gray, which Pennywise gave as his name when he spoke to Georgie. Chapter 104. The Hall of Repeats. There is a hallway in Hobbs Hollow that is no longer on the map. It once connected the gym to the science wing. Now there's just wall. But sometimes, on late winter afternoons, students say they feel a draft. A cold metal doorknob, a pull. If you enter, you walk the same stretch over and over. Posters repeat, lockers reset, the same footstep sounds just behind you. One student left a trail of paper scraps behind her. When she turned, they were ahead of her. They found her weeks later, asleep in the lost and found closet, clutching her last scrap. I walked in alone, but I was followed. It Lurks Below. Pages 133 through 136. Transcription. Chapter 105. The Night of No Names. There was one evening, no one can quite agree on the date, when all the children forgot their names. It began during a power outage that swept across Hobbs Hollow. When the lights came back, the children looked at their parents and asked, "Who am I supposed to be?" Teachers reported blank attendance sheets. A girl named Elsie stood in front of her mirror and whispered, "I used to be someone." By morning, most had remembered, but 3 did not. And in the woods beyond the northern fence, there are still chalk marks on the trees, spelling names that no one in town recognizes. Chapter 106. Tide Clock. Mrs. Ingersoll, the town's oldest resident, kept a peculiar device above her mantel. A tide clock, but one with no hands. It rang only twice a year. Once when the fog crept into town and never quite left. And again when something washed up on shore, always wrapped in oilcloth, always smelling faintly of honey and rot. When asked about the object, she'd say, "It doesn't tell our tides." One year, the clock rang 3 times. That was the winter no one went near the water. Even now, the fishermen say the waves are wrong. Chapter 107. The Ice Cream Man. No one remembered hiring him. No one saw his truck arrive. But in the summer of '67, a pale blue ice cream van played a music box version of Pop Goes the Weasel as it wound slowly through Hobbs Hollow. His prices were strange. 1 tooth, a handful of hair, a secret whispered in the ear. Children lined up anyway. When asked what flavor they got, they couldn't say. Only that it was the color of sleeping. Eventually, the truck vanished. But sometimes, in summer heat waves, you can still hear the faint chime and smell something sweet. Chapter 108. The Candle Game. You play it with 3 friends. Each holds a candle. You stand in the school's boiler room, now sealed off. The rules are, don't speak unless spoken to. Never let your flame go out. If someone disappears, do not look for them. They say the janitor's daughter played it once. She returned, but her voice wasn't hers. She only said one thing. "I never dropped my candle." Later, they found 3 others, curled into pipes, wax fused to their skin. The 4th candle, still burning. It Lurks Below. Pages 137 through 140. Transcription. Chapter 109. Ashes in the Throat. The illness struck without warning. Children woke with hoarse voices and black flecks on their pillows. They coughed ash as though they'd breathed in smoke from a fire long gone cold. Dr. Kessler found no biological cause, no fever, no infection, just scorched lungs, and in some cases, fragments of bark lodged in the windpipe. Mrs. Doyle, the music teacher, began documenting the children's voices on reel-to-reel tape. She claimed to hear other voices layered underneath, ones that whispered backwards. By the end of the week, her recordings were confiscated, and Dr. Kessler was never seen again. Chapter 110. Beneath the Choir Loft. In late autumn, the church's choir loft collapsed. No one was hurt, but as repairs began, workers uncovered a sealed trapdoor beneath the wreckage. Father Brannock insisted it was just a storage root cellar, but the townspeople were not convinced. A boy named Jamie snuck inside with a flashlight. He never spoke of what he saw, but his hair turned white overnight, and his hymns became wordless howls. The next Sunday, the congregation heard the choir singing a new melody, one that none of them had rehearsed, one they couldn't stop humming, even after they'd left the church. Chapter 111. The Empty Classroom. Room 12 was always empty. There was no teacher, no students, just a row of desks and a blackboard that was wiped clean. And yet, on certain mornings, there would be chalk outlines of long equations sketched in spirals instead of lines. A janitor once erased the board before dawn. That night, he fell into a coma. His eyes moved behind the lids as if reading something. When he awoke, he drew a map on the hospital wall with his own blood. It led nowhere. But room 12 was locked the next day, and the key vanished. Chapter 112. They waited in the water. The lakes near Hobbs Hollow were quiet. Too quiet. No frogs, no insects. Just a perfect mirror of the sky. It was said that on certain nights the reflection kept moving, even when the wind was still. 3 teens went out to swim one summer. Only one returned, soaked and silent. When pressed, she only muttered. They waited, they watched, they chose. She never swam again. In fact, she never bathed, only sponge cleaned with salt water. When asked why, she whispered, "They can't touch you if the salt's in your skin." It Lurks Below, pages 141 through 144. Transcription. Chapter 113. The Marionette Window. Old Mrs. Calloway lived on the top floor of the boarding house. She hadn't left her room in years, and yet every Friday, children reported seeing paper puppets dancing in her window. They moved with a stuttering grace, their strings invisible, their eyes painted too wide. One Halloween, a brave girl named Edith climbed the fire escape to peek inside. She found no puppets, just a dozen children's shoes lined neatly beneath the windowsill, and Mrs. Calloway's shadow on the wall, moving without her. Chapter 114. Fangs on the Blackboard. Mr. Pike, the substitute science teacher, had a sharp voice and sharper teeth. No one liked him. He smelled like vinegar and old coins, and never blinked, not once. One day, he drew a diagram of human anatomy on the chalkboard, but the organs were all wrong. The heart had thorns, the brain curled like a nest, the eyes were drawn under the tongue. When Anna asked a question, he only smiled and said, "You'll learn, eventually." She vanished after school. The next day, her laughter echoed from the janitor's closet, where no one could open the door. Chapter 115. The Grave Beneath the Slide. The elementary school installed a new playground in spring of '73, but children refused to play on the slide. It hummed, a low metallic note, like something resonating from below. Parents insisted it was just poor construction, but one child, Marky Densmore, said he saw a pale hand reach up through the gravel and brush his ankle. The school dug beneath the slide. They found a coffin, empty except for a child-sized suit folded neatly, and a voice recorder that still played, endlessly looping, "Go back up, go back up, go back up." Chapter 116. The Return. On the last day of the semester, the air turned to mist. Children who had vanished throughout the year were seen walking home, hand in hand, mouths closed, eyes glowing faintly with lake water shimmer. Parents wept, but none of the returned children would speak. They only opened their palms, revealing smooth stones etched with unknown runes. That night, all the town's cats began to gather near the lake, sitting perfectly still, their eyes locked on the horizon. Mrs. Doyle's final journal entry read, "The bell rang, but it wasn't ours. They've returned, and they're not alone. It lurks below." Pages 145 through 148. Transcription. Chapter 117. The House That Waits. At the edge of Hobbs Hollow, beyond the crumbling marsh road, sits a house no one remembers building. It appears only in winter. Its shingles are crooked, and its chimney exhales steam even when no snow falls. Every child dreams of it at least once. They always describe it the same way. The stairs are upside down. The door opens with a heartbeat. The mirrors show your real name. One boy, Jamie Welks, vanished in January. His last drawing showed the house. Above it, in red crayon, he'd written, "My turn to be the whisper." Chapter 118. The Sheriff's Last Broadcast. Sheriff Randall stayed behind when the others fled. He didn't believe in stories, only in evidence. His final radio transmission, recorded at 2:12 a.m., was broadcast on every channel across Hobbs Hollow. "If anyone can hear me, it's too late. They're in the walls, in the rain, in my breath. I looked through the lens. I shouldn't have. I can see her now. She wears your face. Lock the clocks. Burn the chalk. Don't follow the melody. God help us. God help..." The transmission cuts there. When responders reached his station, they found only a circle of wet footprints leading into the mirror. Chapter 119. The Final Bell. It rang at midnight. Everyone in Hobbs Hollow heard it, even those in comas, even those buried. The bell above the school had been silent for 20 years. That night, its cracked bronze throat sang once more, a deep oceanic chime that made glass sweat and radios bleed static. Those who listened too closely claimed to hear names inside the tone, their own names, spoken backwards. When dawn came, the school was gone. Only the playground carousel remained, still spinning slowly, although no wind stirred the grass. A single lunchbox sat at its center. Inside, a still beating heart, wrapped in a child's drawing of the lake. Chapter 120. Milo's Journal. Milo's journal entry, fragment. "I don't know what I wrote. I found the journal in a storm drain, near a drowned cat with glass eyes. Pages torn, words that weren't mine. I only remember the music. And the boy in yellow who said, 'We're not finished. She's not done remembering. If you've read this far, burn the book. Before she finds you reading it, before she sees her name on your spine. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake it.'" Page 149. The Sea Witch Copy. Page 1. Milo's Journal. Final entry. Recovered from the salt-warped pages of Milo's notebook, left beside the lantern altar below Hobbs Hollow light station. Ink faded, seawater stained. October 31st, 1973. After I vanished through the thin veil at the coast, I found myself in a Hobbs Hollow where my brother and sister never drowned, where things were normal again. Emma and Clara had no idea what I was talking about. It seemed almost like a dream, but something within me kept pulling at me to return. This isn't your home. So I returned through the Veil of Worlds at the coast to put an end to all of this. I enlisted 6 others to help me seal it in the stone well using glyphs from my grandfather's journal. The 6 others are gone now. We believed it was finally over when we sealed the stone well with the circle of 9 glyphs. But something kept humming, beneath the boards, inside the drains, in the rhythm of our lungs when we slept. I don't think it ever left. I think we closed the wrong door and opened another. I've heard my name being spoken in the voices of the drowned. They come up through the floorboards, sloshing and choking, whispering through teeth that aren't there anymore. Mother appeared last night. Her feet didn't touch the ground. I asked her what happened to the others, and she said, they're still playing tag, just deeper now. I wanted to run back through the veil of worlds at the coast, but I knew there was no point, so I stayed. I lit every lantern in the light station. I placed the photographs around the circle. I read the names aloud, all of them, even the ones I had tried to forget. The light flickered once, then I saw it. Not a clown, not a leper, not a shadow. It had my face. Page 150, the Sea Witch copy, page 2. I asked it why. It said, because you remembered me. I don't think we kill it by forgetting. I think forgetting is how it grows. If someone finds this, if this journal reaches another town, another child, don't seal the well. Dig deeper. There's more below, beneath even the roots. There's a room made of mirrors and meat. Hobbs Hollow is only one ripple, but there are others, and they're waking up. Milo, Afterword, 1986 edition. Some books write themselves. This one didn't. This one watched. I don't know where it came from. I wrote it in a cabin overlooking the crumbling coast of Maine in the early 1970s. I had a dream in that cabin of a kid. I think his name was Milo. Or maybe I just liked that name. Anyway, if you're reading this, she already knows your name. Stephen King, Bangor, Maine, October 1986. End of novella. Novella transmission is complete.